Welcome back to the Montana Grizzly Leadership Project. In September of 2012, our guest today was named the 17th Director of Athletics at the University of Montana, which means he is now in year 14 at the helm of Grizz Sports. Under his guidance, UM has won Big Sky Conference championships in men's and women's basketball, football, men's and women's tennis, soccer, and softball. Since his hire, Montana has completed the largest overhaul of facilities in school history, making more than $40 million worth of improvements, including construction of the Grizz softball field, the indoor hitting facility, the Student-Athlete Academic Center, the indoor golf facility, the Champion Center, the men's basketball center, the women's basketball center soon to open.
Yes.
And the indoor practice facility, a.k.a. The bubble.
The bubble.
The bubble. AD Kent Haslam, welcome to the project.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, awesome. So just to orient people from an organizational standpoint, you sit at the head or at the top of University of Montana Athletic Department, and then you report as part of the cabinet to the president.
I do.
That's kind of how it sits.
Yep. I'm a direct report to the president and have been on the cabinet now for as long as I've been the athletic director, and so it's a good relationship.
Yeah. We appreciate you taking the time to come chat leadership.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Charlie.
So how would you describe your leadership philosophy and if it's evolved over the years?
Yeah.
What does that look like for you?
Well, I think, we can wax poetic on our leadership philosophies. We can look at books on Amazon. We can use catchphrases that everyone uses. For me, I think leadership boils down to being somebody who can self-reflect, who can take feedback, who can make decisions, be decisive. At the heart and the core of what we do are people. We're leading people. We're trying to help people get better. And so to not make it any more difficult, it is being a decent human being, and operating in a way that people can approach you and understand you, and that you can articulate a vision. So for me, it really has been part of what I think I enjoy doing, is management by wandering around. I think if you get around to people and you see people, you head off a lot of issues that would come to your desk eventually anyway. Has my leadership style evolved? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've learned so many things in the last 13 and a half years. And a lot of times you learn them by making mistakes, by stubbing your toe and reflecting back and thinking, I should have handled that differently. I should have approached that differently. Should have listened. Those type of things. I think any failure that's not catastrophic, it isn't catastrophic to others or catastrophic to yourself, is a real way for you to learn how to become a better person. So certainly my leadership has evolved over the last several years.
Mm-hmm. So how do you balance then kind of being a visionary leader at the same time as kind of the day-to-day management of operations?
Yeah. Certainly the world of college athletics has changed so dramatically, even in the last year.
Right.
No longer do we reflect back and say, gosh, I long for the good old days of 1998 or 2003 or whatever it might be. I mean, the good old days are 2024.
Right.
And so part of what you've got to do, and I can only relate it to college athletics, is you have to set a beacon that you're heading towards, and making sure that beacon, which I still contend is the development of young people through athletics and providing them an opportunity to get an education, to get a degree that will greatly enhance their opportunity to be successful down the road and open doors for them down the road. That's the beacon that you go towards. And then there's another beacon that I think sits right alongside that, and that is winning. We cannot discount that we are trying to win. We have large scoreboards, and we look up at them at the end when the horn goes off, and we see who won. And we do that, and we don't apologize for that. So winning has got to be another beacon that you head towards. And then, like any other time you're going through on a long journey or whatever it might be, you might sway back and forth and might make changes that as you drift a little right that pull you back towards the center. As you drift a little left, you pull yourself back. Those are your day-to-day operations, but staying anchored on that vision, that mission, that's what we're focused on, that's what we're doing, helps those day-to-day decisions and those day-to-day changes, I think, makes it much easier.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of honoring that student-athlete perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that because you had just released a letter, kind of a state of the affairs, I took it as, with regard to Grizzly Athletics. And you kind of noted those things, right?
Yeah.
That first and foremost on your list was like developing good young humans.
Yeah.
And helping them in their academic pursuits. And then at the same time, I think the second thing you noted was like winning championships.
Yeah, yeah. So I think staying true to those long range, I call them anchors, beacons, whatever you want to call them, lighthouses, wherever it is. Those are those internal morals, those ethics, all the ultimate goals. I don't think those change, but the pathway or the methods by which the day-to-day decisions are made might swing around a little bit, but you stay anchored on those things. That's the way that's worked for me, and I haven't been perfect in that all the time, but that's what I try and do.
Yeah. Who has influenced your leadership style the most, and what did you take from them?
My father, by far. Just an absolute, just a gem of a person, and I know, a lot of people look up to their dads, but absolutely my dad. He had a gift for making you feel like you were the most important person in the world to him when you were with him. And he could do that with anybody. And certainly I watched that. He was a longtime vice principal at the high school that I went to. So my dad was my dad. He was my vice principal. He was also the leader of our local congregation of the church. So, I mean, I was getting my dad from all angles, but I was always so proud to be his son because I watched how much other people were drawn to him, and his authenticity, his ability to acknowledge when he would make mistakes. I remember my dad would apologize to me when he'd do things wrong, or he'd acknowledge that, hey, kind of stubbed my toe there, didn't do that really well. So I saw him as a human, and I also saw him as this person that was very charismatic and could make people feel really good about themselves. So by far, it's been my dad. There's been other professional ones that I've interacted with through my life, but if I had to nail one, it would be my dad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different dynamic, isn't it? My dad was a math teacher at the high school that I went to, and was the coach as well. So
so you see him all the time, but you get in some ways that can be a real hindrance to a person's development. But my dad had he knew when to back off, and he knew when to insert himself. It was a gift that still to this day I reflect on and try to be like I'm not nearly the same person as he is, but try to take some of those.
Try to emulate it when you can.
Yeah.
How do you make difficult decisions when there's no clear right answer?
Go back to your beacons. Go back to the moral view. What is important to you? I think at the core, I serve the University of Montana. I serve the state, this institution. So making decisions that may be really difficult for me, but are in the best interest of the institution. I don't think you make those decisions in a silo. You can't do that. You've got to bring other people in. You've got to get advice. And then ultimately, you have to act. You just have to act. And so I've been fortunate to work with three different presidents at the University of Montana. All three have had very different styles, but all three have been very supportive. But in the end, sticking to what you know to be right and looking for the grander good. There are decisions that can be made. A non-decision is a decision, but a non-decision oftentimes is much easier for the leader trying to make the decision. I can just avoid it. I can leave it alone. Right? That's actually the weaker decision.
Right.
The tougher decision is actually making that choice that could be really difficult. It could lead to some really difficult things for you personally and professionally, but ultimately it's got to be done.
Yeah. What recent initiative or change are you most proud of leading?
Well, you reflected on the the investment we've made into the student athlete support facilities, the infrastructure has been really, really, that was something that I talked about right when I got this job, and have said it to anyone who will listen, that our competition facilities here were tremendous. Everyone sees the stadium. Everybody sees Dahlberg Arena. It's a great experience. Softball field's awesome. Yeah. Those things are great, but the facilities that our student athletes spent 90% of their time in with academic centers, weight rooms, training centers, locker rooms, those support facilities were really, really lacking. Now, we won a lot of championships out of those lacking facilities, but that was really something that you have to go out and you have to articulate, because those facilities don't typically drive revenue. You can expand a stadium with seats because those seats will bring in revenue and it helps you offset the cost to do that. But these facilities are really non-revenue generating facilities, but then you've got to get people to buy into that vision. Yeah. And then recently, with all the changes in college athletics, I'm really happy that we opted into the House settlement. That's a long, long conversation. Those who are just listening to this will go,
15 podcasts.
Exactly. Yeah. But that we pivoted. We were not going to opt in a year ago. If you'd asked me, we're not going to opt into the House settlement and the benefits that come from that. I've told you we're going to wait a year. Come June, when the dynamics changed dramatically and we understood it more, we opted in. We did it quickly. Mm-hmm. And that was a good lesson for me in rallying people, reassuring them, getting them to buy in, say, look, we've really got to do this. And so I'm really, really glad that we took advantage of that 6-7 months ago. And I think we're in a much better spot to adjust to the changing landscape of college athletics because of that decision.
Yeah. In a quick response, if it's possible, what did that allow then? What did that get us by being nimble and getting in that settlement a year early?
Yeah, well, again, this is 15 podcasts, but I'll boil it down really quickly. The House settlement, and everyone can Google what the House settlement is, and they can read it on their own. But it allows us the opportunity to share revenue with student athletes. It also shifts us from being scholarship limited in each sport to actually roster limited. So you now have bodies on a team as opposed to the number of scholarships that you can offer, which opens up more scholarship opportunities for student athletes, where it used to be we'd restrict the number of scholarships that a football team could offer to 63. Now we can have 105 on our roster, and we can divide scholarships out however we want with no limit on that scholarship number. And so it allowed us to do some things that position us better through revenue share and through roster limits, as opposed to had we not opted in.
Yeah, but then we have to contribute some money, right, to the settlement.
No, we don't. No, that didn't change. Whether you opted in or opted out didn't matter. Nope, we were going to contribute regardless. Yep. Got ya. Yep.
Yeah. So, and you've mentioned it already, but let's kind of drill that down a little bit deeper. How do you adapt to all of these changes in college athletics, NIL, revenue share, conference realignment? I mean, all these things that are going on. Again, 15, 20 podcasts probably to do it justice, but just at a 30,000-foot abbreviated view. And like you mentioned, I mean, the good old days in some fashion was a year ago.
It was, yeah. Well, I think number one, you can't be averse to change. You can sit in your office, wring your hands, lament the good old days of the 8-track tape and the fax machine and Blockbuster night, whatever. Yeah, cassette tape, whatever. Or you can adapt and start to take the good. So I heard a description that was really, really good. There's a real difference between adapting and adopting. Adopting, you take everything. You take the good, you take the bad, you take all of it. You just adopt it all. Yeah. Adapting allows you to wind your way through the good and do your best to grab just the good parts of it. And so if you look at the change as we are adapting, as opposed to this overwhelming, like, oh, woe is me, then you're just doomed for failure. So what I think the process, being nimble to me, is being humble enough to recognize that you don't know everything, and that you're willing to self-reflect, and you're willing to pivot and figure out the best ways to be successful in whatever hand you have been dealt, whatever cliche you want to use, whatever you've been given. And so that's where we're really at this. It used to be college athletics was so structured, so easy. Open a manual, look at the rule, interpret it, policies, A plus B equals C. Now you've got some flexibility in there to decide, okay, what's best? What should we do? What is the best result to this decision? What is the best way to get student athletes their greatest opportunity? And so being nimble is allowing yourself to step back and say, okay, I got to make some changes, or this has passed me by.
Mm-hmm. What else do you think is coming? I mean, it just seems like there's turmoil is such a powerful word, but there is some turmoil to a degree, or uncertainty, lots of change. I don't see that changing much, at least in the short term.
Not in the short term.
Yeah, what does that look like then, realizing that it's going to continue to be a little bit tumultuous?
Well, Charlie, if you'd have told me 18 months ago that we would be drafting contracts that we would sign with student athletes with payment schedules on them
to share revenue,
I'd have laughed. I wouldn't have laughed, but I'd have gone like,
no,
oh, come on, no way. We're
Yeah.
not going to do that.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me 18 months ago that agents would be heavily in this space negotiating on behalf of student athletes, I'd have thought I was back in professional baseball. I mean, that's where my job started. That's where my career started.
Right.
And so what's coming next is really hard to tell. I do think, though, we're going to hit a wall at some point where there has to be definition around employment, definition around collective bargaining, definition around antitrust. Those will only come from the federal government. Those will only come from some dramatic change in the designation of student athletes for them to be able to collective bargain. It's really the only way we get a solution. But I will say this, right? I do hear a lot, oh, the college system's broken, it's broken, it's broken. But guess what? It's never been more popular. Viewership has never been higher.
Attendance.
Revenue coming in has never been greater. And so really until what drives all this, whether we like it or not, is revenue. It's revenue that drives it. If that revenue dries up, that will initiate some significant changes. But look at the Indiana National Championship game.
Yeah.
Indiana, Charlie. I mean, 10 years ago, would you have said Indiana could win a national championship in football? No.
Worst team in the
Worst
conference.
worst team in the country.
Worst team in the country.
Absolutely. And so what lies ahead will only be really dramatically shifted when, when we get to that spot where the revenue is starting to drop off.
Which some people speculate will happen, right?
Yeah.
The donors will get tired of
Oh, yeah.
contributing money to programs that change over every single year.
Correct.
And,
Yep.
But we haven't seen it yet.
We haven't seen it yet, and we haven't seen the top end, and it could come from an economic disruption within our whole country. You know, that seems to spark change, which would be a bigger picture.
Yeah.
But there has to be an end game to this at some point. In regards to eligibility for student athletes, revenue sharing, the amount of revenue share, how much broadcast systems are willing to pay for the rights to these things.
Yeah.
That's where you'll see it.
Yeah, and it seems we're going to be so reliant on federal leadership
Yeah.
to help with that, and
Yeah.
that we
Feels a little empty, a little hollow.
Yeah.
And that's, it's not I feel like I got to say it's not a political statement, but there's so many other things that this country is dealing with that they need bipartisan support on. But college athletics is really, really important to this country.
Big deal.
It's a really big deal. We're the only country in the world that marries high academics with high-end athletics, and we do it in a college setting. Only one.
They send their athletes to us.
They send them to us.
What's the most challenging leadership decision you've had to make, and what'd you learn from it?
Oh, I think anytime you've got to make changes to head coaches or personnel, I think anytime you bring that human element in, you can't dismiss the difficult decision that is when you've got to sit with someone and say, look, your services are no longer needed. Thank you very much for what you've done, but we're going to make a change. And those are really, really difficult decisions. Those are ones that if anyone with a heart would tell you that those are not difficult, then I personally think they're lying. So I think those are the most difficult by far. And what you learn from those is that you want to make sure that you've understood the complete picture. Changes are made for a variety of reasons, right? It's not a good match. We're just not performing the way we are. The culture has really gotten away from somebody. Whatever it might be, not performing their job duties, right? So there's a variety of reasons you make that decision. But I think you learn every time you do that. It certainly takes a part of your own your own heart a little bit for better description. Those are difficult decisions to have to make.
It's another human
Absolutely.
that you're
Yeah.
for the greater good, making a tough decision, but at the same time,
Yep.
tremendous impact on that one person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Best piece of leadership advice you've ever received?
Be humble. Be humble and be willing to be self-reflective. Leaders that I see succeed have the ability to look in the mirror and recognize that they need to make some adjustments. Ego and stubbornness are two really bad character traits.
Yeah.
Stubbornness builds a really thick brick wall right in front of that mirror. And so the ability to self-reflect, and many people would say, oh, the leader's got to come in, they got to scream, they got to yell, they got to announce their presence, all those kind of things. And I think there are times for those that type of leadership skill, and and there's times
And
when
a
you
situation
need to,
where it
you
might
need to
be warranted.
reassure. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good. Thought about that during COVID. We're good. We're going to keep going. We're going to be all right. Like, this is all after a big loss, grabbing a head coach and looking him in the eye and saying, look, you're on the right path. You're okay. Like, let's go, step up and do it. But there's other times I think, the great leadership advice was Kent, be willing to self-reflect and understand, and don't let your ego jump too far ahead of you. Because being an athletic director, like being a head coach, being other places, you can get kind of caught up in all the, being on a podcast and people stopping you at Walmart and, hey, great job, or telling you you're horrible. You can get caught up in national conventions and committees and all these cool things if you're not careful.
Right. It can put some blinders up, it seems like.
Totally.
And sometimes those blinders are keeping you from seeing things that maybe you need to see and address.
Yeah. And I've had them on before. There have been times when
certainly.
you have good people.
Myself
And
as well.
many times a wife for me, is a good reminder of tapping you and going, hey, you totally cannot see. You've got a gigantic blind spot. Or really good people that you surround yourself with. That'd be another great piece of advice, is surround yourself with people who really, really are honest and truthful with you, and can balance out some of those, that complete you, that kind of balance out some of those weaknesses you have.
Yeah. And are good at what they do
Really
as well.
good.
Yeah. What legacy do you hope to leave as an athletic director? We're in year 14, as I mentioned in the intro. That's a long run.
It's a long run. It actually is. The legacy I want to leave is just that we invested in student athletes. We won conference championships. So when the time comes to pass it to the next person, that absolutely supportive and looked back on somebody who worked hard, did their best, had faults, but was willing to get better, and really the impact that I want to have on students. I'm viewed kind of as the principal of the school at times. It's not like student athletes are walking in my office and just chit-chatting with me, right?
No, that's...
But hopefully the impact that we've had, and I say we because it's collective, you're a part of that experience as a faculty athletic rep, our advisors, our strength and conditioning coaches, our trainers, all those things, that I've led a group that has left them, that the student athlete is a better developed human being when they leave than when they came in.
Yeah. Long-term vision for the department, and which is interesting, right? Because you said so much change now happens so quickly, but again, as you mentioned in your letter that got released earlier this week, there still does need to be kind of a longer-term vision component as best you can.
Yeah.
What's that look like, do you think, for the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think it's certainly competing at the highest level that we possibly can. And what that will mean is remaining a Division I institution, competing for conference championships. I think when it comes to the sport of football, because football is the only sport in the NCAA that has a subdivision. So I explained to everybody, look, we're a Division I institution. All of our sports, except for football, compete for the same national championship as Duke and Stanford and Texas and UCLA and whoever you want to list there, right?
Yep.
Football is, we have different subdivisions. And so you feel like football might be dividing into 3 subdivisions, like the large power fours kind of break off and not do their thing. And then you've got a middle tier, and then maybe you have a third tier here. We want to be in that. We want to be at the top of that second tier. That's where we really might. Our long-term vision is not to compete against Alabama for a national championship in football. That's unrealistic. That would be chasing something that you can't attain.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't have high expectations, but let's be honest, it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, it's just not going to happen. And so making sure that we're positioning ourselves to be competing for championships with like-minded institutions where the athletic program is just as relevant to the institution as it is to that other institution and just as relevant to the region. So that's one thing I remind people all the time, nationally and here locally and regionally. We are the University of Montana. There's only 50 states in this great union, and we're a university of one of those states.
Yeah.
And so what that does is it makes what we do really important to the economy of the state, to the people of the state, to the alums, all those things. And so making sure that our vision aligns with us being with like-minded institutions where we're investing the same way and we're competing the same way and we want to accomplish the same thing. And that's competing at the highest level possible, remaining a Division I institution, and investing in experiences our student athletes have that make them better people.
Yeah. I think it's
a
great way to kind of,
if you think about it,
up.
if you think about just with football and I don't want to start rattling off institutions' names because then someone's going to say, "Oh, Kent just said we're going here." So really, the conference affiliation for me, we talk a lot about moving up. Are you moving up? What does really moving up mean right now?
Where are we going to move?
Has to be exactly.
The question then.
We can share revenue just like everybody else. We have 105 on our football team just like everyone else. Where the movement comes is making sure that you're in a neighborhood where everyone's working just as hard and contributing just as much to make sure that enterprise is successful and that we're competing at the very top level that we can.
Yeah. Are those tiers defined just by financial figures?
I think they're going to...
Or are there other elements that you think will define kind of what these tiers are?
I think there will be financial tiers, and then I think there could very well be a championship involved in each one of those tiers.
Gotcha.
So let's say there's a college football playoff that we just saw Indiana win. That's one tier. Then you've got another tier that's got a championship within it, and all those schools that are currently FBS that in reality trying to beat now Indiana. Holy cow, who said that?
Yeah.
Those schools, it's just not realistic, forming the tier there where a championship takes place as well, and then having another tier below that we might very well see is what currently is FCS. So we want to be in that middle tier. We want to be among those institutions right there that are trying to be a part of something that's similar, like-minded. But I think there will be some financial levels, some investment levels, and I think there will be a championship opportunity that will be contained within that tier.
All right.
It's just me.
Well, that's going to do it for this
Great.
episode of the Montana Grizzly Leadership Project. Kent, so much thank you.
Yeah,
for
taking
great. The time. You're a busy person.
Always have time.
Always blown away by the skill sets that an AD has to have. And I don't know if people, how many people realize that, right? Of just, in a lot of jobs, you can get kind of hyper-focused on, what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that set of skills is kind of small. That is absolutely not the case for an AD. You have to be so good at so many different things.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And to be effective, and I've not always been exactly perfect at this. I'm the first to acknowledge it. You've got to be good in a variety of ones. You've got to be you got to be externally turned. You've got to be internally turned. You've got to work politically on a campus and navigate through all that. You've got to work externally politically through all the decision makers and fundraise and support student athletes and deal with coaches and deal with competition. You put competition, ego, and money into a blender, and it makes a really funny milkshake.
Yeah.
It does. And so navigating all of that, because in the end, we are measured every single day. At the end of every competition, I tell people we are in a measurement business. And it's a zero sum when you get into conference play. There's going to be a winner and a loser. And so you immediately, what did we used to do when you look at the box scores in baseball or in the newspaper, you'd open it up, you see who won and who lost.
Yep.
And we get measured every single day. And so managing that at times can be overwhelming if you lose track of what's most important.
Yeah. Again, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll catch you next time on the Montana Grizzly Leadership Project.
Thank you.